October 12, 1941. Wehrmacht headquarters, southern sector of Odessa. Oberst Heinrich Müller observed the tactical map, while his officers reported the previous week's losses. 17 soldiers killed by single shots to the head. 5 in supposedly secure positions, behind fortified lines. 3 German snipers eliminated in precise ambushes. The room smelled of tobacco and frustration. Müller had convened this emergency meeting not because of the absolute numbers, but because of the pattern. Each death exhibited the same signature. A single shot. Extreme distance. No witnesses. Hauptmann Werner Koch broke the silence with a bitter laugh. 17 men killed by a woman, he said, emphasizing the last word with disdain. The Bolsheviks are so desperate they're putting their peasant women on the battlefield with rusty rifles. Other officers laughed. Someone ironically toasted the Fräuleins with Mosins. Müller permitted the mockery. After all, the idea was absurd. Women didn't possess the discipline, the psychological coldness, the physical strength to endure days motionless in firing positions. Soviet female snipers were cheap propaganda, desperation disguised as innovation. Koch guaranteed that within 2 weeks, his own counter-sniper teams would eliminate this amateur threat. What Oberst Müller didn't know was that at that exact moment, 600 meters away, Lyudmila Pavlichenko was observing his headquarters through a PU telescopic sight. At 25 years old, born in Bila Tserkva, she had already eliminated 94 enemy soldiers of what would eventually become her 309 confirmed kills, including 36 enemy snipers. She had volunteered in June after the Nazi invasion, rejecting nursing work to demand a combat rifle. Her average was 1.7 kills per day of operation. Müller would discover this personally within 48 hours. On the morning of October 14th, while inspecting forward positions, a single Soviet shot would pierce his left thigh at 700 meters distance. The shot wouldn't be fatal, but sufficient for permanent medical transfer. Pavlichenko would note in her diary, "Talkative Oberst, target number 95. German counter-sniper doctrine, refined since World War I and perfected during the 1940 French campaign, was based on 3 fundamental pillars. First, optical superiority. The Germans equipped their snipers with Zeiss ZF-41 4-power scopes, considered the most advanced in the world, with treated lenses that eliminated telltale reflections and allowed target acquisition 30% faster than Soviet equivalents. Second, superior precision rifles. The Karabiner 98K represented a century of Prussian weapons engineering, with smooth bolt action capable of 5 shots per minute, barrel manufactured by Mauser with tolerances of 1/100th of a millimeter, and ballistic consistency verified every 500 units produced. Third, extensive training. Each German sniper went through 16 weeks at the Zossen Sniper School, learning ballistic calculations, advanced camouflage, hunting psychology. The approval rate was below 40%. Those who graduated were considered invincible, capable of eliminating targets at 800 meters in ideal conditions. Between 1939 and 1941, German snipers had eliminated more than 2,000 enemy soldiers, with operational survival rate above 85%. This confidence wasn't empty arrogance, it was mathematics, proven in French, Polish, and British blood. While German instructors perfected techniques at Zossen, Lyudmila Pavlichenko was proving that technical excellence was irrelevant before absolute patience. On August 23, 1941, during defense of a forward position in Odessa, she remained motionless for 15 hours and 40 minutes, waiting for a German sniper to reveal his position. Without moving, without drinking water, controlling each breath, the German's Zeiss scope was superior to her Soviet 3.5x PU. His Mauser was more accurate than her 1891 Mosin Nagant. He had 16 weeks of Zossen. She had 4 weeks of rush training. But when he finally adjusted position at 6:12 p.m., Confident that no Soviet would have discipline for such prolonged ambush, Pavlichenko fired once. The German fell. This was kill number 37 of the 309 that would eventually make her the deadliest sniper in history. German officers in the sector recorded the incident as accidental loss from friendly fire. The possibility that a Soviet woman could remain motionless longer than a Zossen graduate simply didn't compute in their tactical analyses. The Soviet response violated every principle that German doctrine had established as non-negotiable. Equipment to begin with was manifestly inferior. The Mosin-Nagant model 1891 Chur-30 rifle had been designed 50 years earlier, a Tsarist relic with a hard bolt action that required brute force to operate. Its PU scope, manufactured hastily in factories evacuated to the Urals, had only 3.5 YX magnification against the Germans' 4-power, untreated lenses that produced dangerous reflections under direct sunlight and mounting that lost calibration after 200 shots. The rifle weighed 3 kilograms loaded, half a kilogram more than the Mauser, and its 7.62 F-44mm ammunition varied in quality depending on which bombed factory produced it that week. There was no quality control system. Every fifth bullet was statistically defective. As for training, it was primitive. Pavlichenko received exactly 25 days of instruction before being sent to the front. Her instructors also rushed, taught the basics: how to aim, how to breathe, how not to die on the first day. There was no Soviet Zossen. There were no 16 weeks. There was no 40% approval rate because they approved everyone who could hit a target at 300 meters 3 times in 5 attempts. The contrast was brutal. Germans spent 3 months manufacturing a sniper. Soviets spent 3 weeks. What German engineers saw as fatal inferiority, Lyudmila Pavlichenko transformed into strategic invisibility. Her Mosin's hard action was noisy, but she developed technique of covering sound with distant artillery. The untreated lenses reflected sun, so she operated exclusively from shaded positions or during dawn and dusk when light was diffuse. Inconsistent ammunition forced her to test each batch by firing 3 cartridges before mission, discarding those that presented deviation greater than 5 centimeters at 400 meters. On September 7, 1941, during an ambush in an abandoned warehouse near Odessa port, her rifle took direct impact from grenade shrapnel. The stock cracked, the scope misaligned. Any German sniper would have requested immediate replacement, waiting days for new equipment. Pavlichenko improvised using piano wire to stabilize the stock and recalibrated the scope using door hinge screws. 3 hours later, she eliminated 2 German soldiers at 500 meters. When platoon comrades asked how she managed to aim with damaged equipment, she responded with icy pragmatism that her superiors noted. "German rifle needs to be perfect to function. My Mosin only needs to shoot once." Germans design equipment to impress generals. We design tactics to kill Germans. It was kill number 54 of 309. An official assessment from the Oberkommando der Wehrmacht, dated September 18, 1941, analyzed the threat represented by Soviet female snipers. The document, classified as Geheim and distributed to division commanders in the southern sector, concluded with technical authority. Employment of female personnel in sniper function represents desperate measure indicative of imminent collapse of Soviet military capacity. Ballistic analysis confirms physical impossibility of women maintaining stability necessary for extreme precision due to lower upper body muscle mass and reduced lung capacity. Soviet equipment demonstrates measurable inferiority. Optical scopes present 40% less light-gathering effectiveness. Ammunition exhibits initial velocity variation of up to 80 meters per second between batches. Rifles show operational lifespan of only 3,000 rounds against our 12,000. Accelerated training identified, average of 20 to 30 days against our standard of 16 weeks, results in primitive tactical knowledge and incapacity to operate in adverse conditions. Statistical projection indicates attrition rate of 60 to 70% within first 2 weeks of operation for female snipers, compared with 15% for our specialists. German advantage is absolute. Optical superiority of 1.3 to 1. Precision superiority of 2 to 1 at ranges exceeding 600 meters. Training superiority of 6 to 1 in time dedicated. Recommendation: maintain current doctrine. Do not develop specific countermeasures. Threat will be eliminated naturally by operational attrition within 4 to 6 weeks. The document bore signatures of 3 generals and Reich Aviation Ministry stamp. It was completely wrong. While German High Command filed its assessment with bureaucratic confidence, Lyudmila Pavlichenko was systematically dismantling the enemy command chain in Odessa. During the exact period covered by the assessment, between September 18th and October 2nd, she eliminated 23 German soldiers, including 4 junior officers. Her technique violated every prediction of the document. Instead of operating in the first 2 weeks and being eliminated by attrition, she was in her 14th consecutive week of operations. Instead of demonstrating primitive tactical knowledge, she had developed her own camouflage system, using 5 rotating positions that confused German counter-snipers. Instead of incapacity to operate in adverse conditions, she conducted missions under rain, snow, and fog, using techniques that no Zosen school taught, because they presumed that they were impossible. At this point in her career, she had already surpassed 120 confirmed kills, rapidly approaching the 309 that would make her legend. German logistics reports recorded unexplainable officer losses in southern sector, but never connected the dots. The assessment document would remain in files until 1945, when Soviet forces would capture it intact. It would become museum piece, exemplifying the price of underestimation. The Germans had made a fatal calculation error that transcended simple technical superiority. Their logic seemed impeccable. Better optics plus better rifle plus better training necessarily resulted in absolute superiority. Each variable had been quantified. Zeiss scopes collected 40% more light than Soviet POWs. Mauser K98K was measurably more accurate than Mosin-Nagant. 16 weeks of Zosen produced snipers technically superior to 25 days of rushed instruction. Mathematics was mathematics. Physics was physics. But crucially, they had neglected a non-quantifiable variable. German doctrine presumed that enemy would think like Germans. It presumed that Soviet sniper would follow German tactical manual, engage targets in the same manner that German sniper would engage, prioritize same objectives, operate within same risk parameters. This presumption created exploitable predictability. German snipers were trained to hunt other snipers by identifying logical positions, elevations with good visibility, structures with solid cover, angles that minimized exposure. Lyudmila Pavlichenko operated from illogical positions because she hadn't learned what was correct. She positioned herself in flooded craters where German sniper would never consider staying because they were uncomfortable. She used unstable rubble that German doctrine classified as inadequate. She remained motionless in exposed positions because German manual said no one would be so imprudent, therefore Germans didn't look there. One specific incident illustrated the paradox perfectly. On October 31st, 1941, Hauptmann Otto Schneider, Zosen graduate with 42 confirmed kills, was assigned specifically to eliminate the Odessa sniper who had become legend among German troops. Schneider spent 3 days studying attack patterns, identifying 6 probable positions based on standard tactical doctrine. He fortified counter positions with optimized fields of fire. He coordinated with observers. He prepared perfect ambush. Pavlichenko without knowing German theory, chose a seventh position, partially collapsed roof that required crawling over exposed beams, offered minimal cover, but provided angle that no manual would consider viable. Schneider methodically swept his 6 theoretical positions. Pavlichenko, invisible in her incorrect position, observed Schneider for 7 hours. When he finally relaxed, convinced the target wasn't present, she fired once at 460 meters. Schneider was kill number 141 of 309. Subsequent German report attributed loss to lucky shot from extreme distance. The possibility that German doctrine had created exploitable blind spot simply wasn't considered. Germans calculated range, accuracy, optical quality, training time. They calculated everything except one variable. You cannot hunt what doesn't think like prey. And Lyudmila Pavlichenko didn't think like German manual predicted she would think. The paradoxicality that had already frustrated German snipers was only the first of 3 advantages Lyudmila Pavlichenko possessed. The second emerged from a difference that superficially seemed trivial, but operationally was devastating: time. German counter-sniper doctrine, perfected at Zossen, emphasized temporal efficiency. Tactical manuals specified that snipers should identify enemy position within 2 to 4 hours, establish counterposition, eliminate target, and relocate before Soviets responded. This 4-hour window was based on psychological studies showing maximum human concentration deteriorates after this period. Remaining longer created mental fatigue, muscle tremor from prolonged tension, and growing risk of detection. Therefore, German snipers were trained for rapid and decisive operations. 4 hours was considered absolute maximum. 6 hours was considered imprudent. 8 hours was considered tactical suicide. This doctrine of operational speed produced impressive results against conventional Soviet targets who also operated in similar temporal windows, but it created critical vulnerability against adversary willing to operate outside these accepted temporal parameters. On November 12, 1941, during defensive operations in Sevastopol, Pavlichenko demonstrated this advantage in her kill, number 163. After eliminating a German officer at 6:45 a.m., she knew a counter-sniper would be assigned. German doctrine was predictable. She chose an apparently exposed position in rubble of administrative building, deliberately visible from 3 different angles. Any German sniper analyzing terrain would identify this position as too obvious, therefore a trap. But Pavlichenko calculated that after 4 hours without activity, German sniper would conclude position was abandoned. She remained absolutely motionless for 18 hours and 20 minutes. Without water, without food, without movement except minimum necessary breaths. Muscles screaming, bladder protesting, each minute an eternity. German sniper established position at 8:20 a.m. as predicted. He observed Pavlichenko's position for exactly 5 hours, following Zossen protocol perfectly. At 1:20 p.m. he concluded position was empty and relocated attention to other sectors. At 3:47 p.m., confident he had mapped all threats, he adjusted position slightly to improve firing angle against Soviet targets in distant trenches, movement of 30 centimeters. Pavlichenko, who had observed his position for 9 hours, fired once. This was kill 163 of the 309 that would eventually make her the deadliest Soviet sniper. German report classified loss as casualty from unknown sniper, operating outside recognized tactical patterns. But the third advantage emerged from what Germans considered absolute impossibility of physics and human anatomy. Zossen doctrine taught identification of enemy positions through logical terrain analysis. Snipers learned to think like engineers. Which elevation offers best field of fire? Which structure provides adequate cover? Which angle minimizes exposure? This logical analysis produced list of 6 to 8 probable positions in any theater of operations. German counter-sniper methodically eliminated these positions one by one until locating enemy. System worked because both sides thought identically, trained by same universal military logic. But Pavlichenko hadn't been trained by German engineers. She chose positions that violated principles Zosin taught as inviolable. She operated from partially flooded craters where frozen water caused hypothermia in 90 minutes. She used collapsed roofs where unstable beams could give way under human weight. She established herself in completely exposed locations that no manual would consider because they presumed bilateral visibility was fatal disadvantage. But Pavlichenko understood psychology Germans ignored. No one looks where they presume, no one can be. During Siege of Sevastopol in January 1942, she operated for 43 consecutive days from position that Zosin would have classified as impossible. Second floor of partially destroyed building, without front wall, completely visible to German observers at 500 meters. Any German sniper seeing that structure would instantly conclude it was unviable because exposure was total. Therefore, no need to inspect in detail. Pavlichenko established herself recessed exactly 2 meters from edge, where shadow of collapsed ceiling created darkness that contrast with external light made invisible. By day, German observers saw only darkness where their eyes couldn't adjust. By night, there was no contrast to reveal her presence. From this supposedly impossible position, she eliminated 17 German soldiers, including 2 elite snipers who had been sent specifically to locate her. Both examined that building with binoculars, saw exposed structure, and dismissed it as possibility. They never looked twice. Pavlichenko, observing through her PU, patiently waited for both to commit fatal error of presuming tactical impossibility was real impossibility. Kills number 184 and 186 of her 309 confirmed. When she finally relocated after 43 days because ammunition ran out, German commanders recorded report classifying attacks as fire from multiple mobile sources. The possibility of single sniper operating from fixed exposed position for 6 weeks simply didn't compute. The third advantage, however, transcended tactics and plunged into structural prejudice that made Pavlichenko literally invisible to German intelligence. Wehrmacht operated under fundamental presumption that women didn't serve in direct combat functions. This wasn't simple underestimation, it was certainty based on century of Western military doctrine. Women were nurses, cooks, telephone operators, never snipers, because female psychology supposedly didn't tolerate direct violence, female anatomy didn't sustain heavy rifles, and female mentality didn't process ballistic calculations under pressure. Therefore, when German soldiers reported being targeted by sniper, German intelligence automatically presumed masculine. Identification manuals described sniper characteristics: height, strength to carry equipment, beards growing during prolonged operations, all masculine. This presumption created fatal cognitive blind spot. Germans looked for men. Pavlichenko was woman. Even when observers saw her through binoculars, they interpreted figure as young soldier or adolescent recruit. Human brain sees what it expects to see. And Germans didn't expect to see women killing. On February 3, 1942, during German offensive against Soviet positions in Sevastopol, Pavlichenko exploited this psychological blindness in manner that would later be studied in military academies. She crossed German lines disguised as civilian refugee, carrying disassembled Mosin in cloth backpack. German soldiers saw her. 3 different checkpoints inspected her. All saw a young woman in dirty civilian clothes, obviously displaced by war. None imagined backpack contained precision rifle, disassembled in 4 components. She established position in building occupied by Soviet civilians, assembled rifle in empty room, and spent 72 hours hunting German officers in forward headquarters at 600 meters. She eliminated 9 targets, including Adjunct Oberst, whose death caused measurable operational disorganization. When she finally relocated, disassembled rifle, returned through German lines by same route. German soldiers saw her again. None suspected. Subsequent German intelligence reports speculated about infiltration of elite sniper team of 5 to 7 men, based on number of kills and temporal dispersion. Pavlichenko was one woman operating alone, but Germans couldn't see what their brains classified as impossible. Of the 309 kills she would eventually accumulate, 42 were eliminated while Germans searched for male snipers who didn't exist. She was invisible not by camouflage, but by prejudice. German technical superiority on paper meant absolutely nothing in operational reality. This dissonance between theory and practice manifested brutally in statistics that Wehrmacht logistics recorded but High Command ignored. Average German sniper graduated from Sassen completed operational career of 40 to 70 missions before death, serious injury, or psychological collapse. This rate reflected not incompetence, but intensity of sniper warfare. Each mission represented hours of extreme stress, where single error resulted in instant death. German snipers operated in teams of 2, with observer providing cover and surveillance. Equipment was sophisticated: Zeiss scopes, accurate Mauser rifles, consistent ammunition, superior training. Cost of producing each German sniper was significant: 16 weeks at Zossen. Cost approximately 8,000 Reichsmarks per student, including instructor salaries, training ammunition, and facilities. Approval rate of 40% meant real cost per graduated sniper was 20,000 Reichsmarks. Additional equipment, 3,000 Reichsmarks. Total, 23,000 Reichsmarks per operational sniper. Germany had trained approximately 1,200 elite snipers since 1939. Total investment, 27,600,000 Reichsmarks. In contrast, Pavlichenko represented Soviet investment of infinitely smaller magnitude. 25 days of accelerated training cost approximately 200 rubles, including ammunition. Mosin Nagant rifle with PU scope cost 350 rubles from factory. Ammunition was state-subsidized, essentially free for combat units. Uniforms and personal equipment, 50 rubles. Total Soviet investment in Pavlichenko, 600 rubles, approximately equivalent to 300 Reichsmarks. Investment ratio. Germans spent 77 times more producing comparable sniper. But operational return inverted this ratio dramatically. Average German sniper eliminated 8 to 12 enemy targets during career. Pavlichenko, operating with fraction of cost and training, had eliminated 197 German soldiers by this point of February 1942, rapidly walking toward her 309 confirmed. Efficiency per Reichsmark invested. Pavlichenko produced return approximately 200 times superior to average German sniper. But most devastating numbers emerged when Wehrmacht calculated cost of countermeasures. Between August 1941 and March 1942, German intelligence identified Pavlichenko as priority threat after a pattern of officer deaths became statistically impossible to be coincidence. German commanders designated 16 elite snipers specifically to eliminate her. 3 were killed by her in ambushes. 4 were killed by other Soviet snipers while hunting Pavlichenko. 9 returned without success after weeks of fruitless operations. Cost of these 16 specialists: 368,000 Reichsmarks in training, equipment, and salaries. Infantry units received orders to identify and eliminate Sevastopol sniper. Dedicated patrols consumed approximately 1,500 man-hours specifically searching for Pavlichenko. Cost in military salaries and operations: 40,000 Reichsmarks. Artillery bombardments on suspected positions, approximately 200 heavy shell firings, 50,000 Reichsmarks in ammunition. Total German investment attempting to eliminate one Soviet woman who cost 300 Reichsmarks to train, 458,000 Reichsmarks. During this period, Pavlichenko continued normal operations, eliminating 43 additional targets, including 7 of the 16 snipers sent to kill her. She represented operational efficiency Wehrmacht couldn't replicate, single combatant fixing disproportional resources while producing consistent casualties. Each day she survived, each German she eliminated, each resource Wehrmacht wasted trying to kill her, amplified economic asymmetry. Soviets had invested 300 Reichsmarks. Germans had invested 458,000 attempting to neutralize this investment. Ratio 1,520 to 1. And she was still alive, still operational, still killing. By February 1942, her 197 confirmed kills included 23 officers whose replacement and lost experience cost Wehrmacht at least 500,000 additional Reichsmarks in interrupted training and operational disorganization. Total value of damage Pavlichenko had inflicted, more than 1 million Reichsmarks. Soviet return on investment, 3,333%. But most disturbing statistic emerged when German analysts calculated probability of elimination. Based on historical attrition rates of snipers, Pavlichenko should have been killed or wounded after 30 to 40 missions. She had completed 143 documented missions by February 1942, walking toward her 309 that she would eventually complete. Each mission she survived beyond statistical expectation multiplied psychological cost for German troops. Soldiers began referring to her as Die Frau Tod, the woman death. Superstitions proliferated. Some believed she was ghost, impossible to kill. Others that she was demon assuming human form. German commanders recognized these superstitions as erosion of military morale, but couldn't counterbalance with reality that Pavlichenko seemed genuinely impossible to eliminate. Wehrmacht was spending resources combating not just Soviet sniper, but growing legend that her survival created. German high command was beginning to realize that killing one woman in Soviet uniform with 1891 rifle was costing more than that woman was costing Soviets. And Lyudmila Pavlichenko, with 197 confirmed kills advancing inexorably toward 309, absolutely had no intention of stopping. While German high command grappled with resource drain, frontline intelligence was about to deliver even more disturbing revelation. On March 16, 1942, intelligence officer of German Second Army in Crimea compiled report based on interrogations of Soviet prisoners captured during offensive at Kerch. Routine report, initially. Prisoners consistently mentioned activity of Soviet snipers operating in Sevastopol sector. Nothing extraordinary. But 3 different prisoners, interrogated separately, specifically referred to Lyudmila, or Lady Death, operating in Sevastopol defenses. Interrogators initially presumed it was tactical code name or nickname for particularly effective male sniper. Then one prisoner, soldier from Soviet Second Guard Rifle Battalion, provided specific details under interrogation. Lyudmila Pavlichenko, Lieutenant, 25 years old, from Kiev, sniper, already killed more than 150 Germans. Interrogator noted with skepticism. Female sniper seemed obvious propaganda, but second report arrived 4 days later from completely different source. German soldiers had recovered body of Soviet sniper killed in failed ambush. Documents identified Lieutenant Lyudmila Pavlichenko, 25th Chapayev Rifle Division. Documents included partially burned personal diary with dated and methodically recorded notes. Each entry listed date, target, distance, result. Count reached 163 confirmed kills, up to date of last entry. German intelligence officer who analyzed documents initially classified as elaborate propaganda fabrication. Numbers were impossible. But handwriting was consistent, dates corresponded to known operations in Odessa and Sevastopol, and tactical details were too accurate to be invented. Cross-reference with German casualty reports in sector showed disturbing correlation. Dates Pavlichenko recorded kills corresponded to dates German units reported officer losses from single sniper shot. Pattern was statistically impossible to be coincidence. Report escalated rapidly. Battalion commander dismissed as curiosity. Division commander requested additional verification. Corps commander sent priority order. Confirm identity and capability of designated target Lyudmila Pavlichenko. During following weeks, German intelligence collected fragments. Soviet propaganda occasionally mentioned female snipers, but Wehrmacht had presumed they were fictional characters for home morale. Additional prisoner interrogations confirmed. Pavlichenko was real, operational, and Soviets considered her hero. On April 7, 1942, Wehrmacht High Command received consolidated report confirming that 25-year-old female sniper had eliminated at least 197 documented German soldiers, possibly more. Report included captured photograph from Soviet propaganda showing Pavlichenko in uniform with Mosin Nagant rifle. Image was unequivocal. Young woman, serious eyes, holding rifle with familiarity that only came from extensive use. Revelation created credibility crisis within Wehrmacht command structure. First reaction was institutional disbelief. Generals who had commanded divisions through Polish and French campaigns refused to accept that Soviet woman with 4 weeks of training could eliminate 200 trained German soldiers. They demanded more proof. Intelligence provided. Additional captured documents, consistent prisoner testimonies, statistical correlation between Pavlichenko's activity and German casualties. Disbelief transformed into humiliation. German snipers trained at Zossen for 16 weeks, equipped with world's best rifles and optics, had been systematically hunted by women with inferior equipment. But third reaction was more concerning for German command. Fear spreading among troops. Soldiers on Crimean front began referring to her as Lady Death or the Russian. Superstitions proliferated. Some believed she never missed shot, others that she could see through fog. Commanders recognized these superstitions as dangerous erosion of military discipline. Wehrmacht faced impossible propaganda dilemma. Publicly acknowledging that Soviet woman was killing Germans would be admission of fundamental ideological weakness. Nazi doctrine about Slavic inferiority and female incapacity for combat would crumble before evidence that Russian woman was more effective than German snipers. But suppressing information completely was impossible because frontline soldiers already knew. Solution was uncomfortable compromise. Operational order dated April 22, 1942 instructed. References to priority counter-sniper targets shall employ standard tactical designations without specific mention of personal characteristics that might negatively impact troop morale. Target designated Sevastopol Ost 1 shall be eliminated with extreme priority. Sevastopol Ost 1 was Pavlichenko. Germans were so disturbed they refused to use her name in official orders. Additionally, Wehrmacht established unofficial reward. Any soldier who captured or eliminated Pavlichenko would receive Iron Cross and immediate promotion. Some post-war reports mentioned chocolate offered as additional incentive, reflecting German desperation. Woman who cost 300 rubles to train now had official German price of approximately 10,000 Reichsmarks in combined rewards. While German command structured bureaucratic response, Pavlichenko continued missions without pause. On April 22, 1942, exact day operational order was issued designating her Sevastopol Ost 1. She was executing ambush in Port District ruins. She had no knowledge Germans had finally confirmed her identity. She wouldn't have cared if she knew. Her mission that day was eliminate German officer that Soviet observers identified inspecting forward positions at 6:30 a.m. every morning. Pavlichenko established herself at 4 a.m. in position she had prepared 3 days before. She remained motionless for 4 hours and 50 minutes. At 8:50 a.m., officer appeared, tardy but predictable. She fired once at 620 meters. Kill confirmed. It was kill number 203 of the 309 she would eventually complete. For her, it was Tuesday. When comrades mentioned Germans had established reward for her capture, she responded with characteristic pragmatism that superiors noted, "Let them offer chocolate. I offer bullets." Discovery changed absolutely nothing operationally. Pavlichenko continued shooting. Germans continued dying. After war, Soviet and Allied interrogators collected testimonies from German prisoners during proceedings from 1945 to 1947. When questioned about experiences on Eastern Front, specifically about Soviet counter-snipers, responses showed disturbing consistency. Even veteran SS officers demonstrated visible reaction when interrogators mentioned elite Soviet snipers operating in Crimea during 1941-1942. Pattern emerged through hundreds of interviews, retrospective fear mixed with reluctant respect. One particularly detailed testimony came from Oberleutnant Klaus Richter, infantry platoon commander, 22nd Panzer Division, captured in May 1945 near Berlin. Allied interrogator asked about officer losses in Sevastopol sector. Transcript records, "We lost 7 officers in our battalion in 3 weeks. March 1942. All by single shot to head. Always from extreme distance. Always at moments when we thought we were secure. We discovered later it was a woman, Lyudmila Pavlichenko. Name circulated among troops. Nobody wanted to patrol sectors where she operated. Commanders had to rotate units frequently because soldiers developed irrational fear isn't the right term. Very rational fear. She killed methodically, without errors. Statistically, you had better chance surviving frontal assault than being her target." Second testimony came from Hauptmann Werner Schulze, intelligence officer, 6th Army, interrogated in Soviet prisoner camp in August 1945. When questioned about German assessments of Soviet capability, he mentioned Pavlichenko specifically without prompt. "Our intelligence reports identified her in April 1942. Command initially refused to believe numbers were accurate. 200 confirmed kills? Impossible for any sniper, much less woman. But data was irrefutable. We cross-referenced with our own casualties. Correlation was perfect. Then Command issued priority capture order. We designated 3 counter-sniper teams specifically to eliminate her. 2 of 6 men were killed, presumably by her, though we never confirmed. Other 4 returned without success after 5 weeks. It was humiliation we couldn't admit publicly. Our best snipers, trained at Zossen, couldn't eliminate Soviet woman with minimal training." Interrogator asked if he believed Soviet propaganda exaggerated her capabilities. Schulze responded, "No. If anything, they underestimated. Soviets claimed 200 kills when we captured her." Note: factual error. Pavlichenko was evacuated, not captured. Our intelligence calculated at least 240 based on correlation with our casualties. She was genuinely effective weapon. Third testimony, particularly revealing, came from Lieutenant Erich Hoffmann, elite sniper, captured at Stalingrad, interrogated December 1942. Hoffmann had operated in sector adjacent to Pavlichenko during Sevastopol defense. Transcript shows, "There was sniper our men called Ghost of Sevastopol. We never saw position. Shots came from different places each time. Eliminated targets at distances we considered impossible for Soviet equipment. 700, 800 meters with Mosin and PU scope. Technically improbable. But it happened." I lost 3 comrades trying to locate this sniper. Only after capture did I learn it was Pavlichenko. She had killed 309 German soldiers, including 36 of us, specialized snipers. When I learned it was woman, my first reaction was shame. But shame was stupid. Gender was irrelevant. She was simply superior. More patient, more disciplined, more lethal. We spent weeks looking for man who didn't exist while she continued operating invisible. Common pattern emerged through testimonies. Almost all mentioned psychological aspect, fear of invisible enemy who never missed. Many tried to rationalize upon learning it was woman. Soviet propaganda must have exaggerated numbers, or certainly there were multiple snipers using same name. But intelligence officers who had studied reports reluctantly admitted Soviet records were, if anything, conservative. Several prisoners mentioned rewards offered for her capture, confirming Wehrmacht was desperate enough to offer significant material incentives. One variant phrase appeared repeatedly: "We couldn't hunt what we couldn't find." Recognition that Pavlichenko had transcended conventional counter-sniper tactics through patience and discipline that German training didn't replicate. Pavlichenko was aware Germans had established rewards and sent specialized teams to eliminate her. Soviet intelligence intercepted German communications mentioning Sevastopol, Ost 1, and informed her she was priority target. Her response was, continue operations exactly as before. During period between April and June 1942, when German hunters operated specifically searching for her, Pavlichenko eliminated 53 additional targets, including 4 that were likely the German counter-snipers themselves designated to kill her. Her 309 confirmed kills, including 36 enemy snipers mentioned in title, became documented not only in Soviet records but in German testimonies that grudgingly confirmed each kill. In June 1942, wounded by mortar during German bombardment in Sevastopol, she was evacuated against her will. Soviet commanders recognized her propaganda value exceeded her tactical value at that point. After war, when confronted with German testimonies about fear she inspired, she responded with same practicality that characterized her entire career. We did what was necessary. Whether they respected us, feared us, or were humiliated by us was their problem. Our concern was victory. The testimonies confirmed what Germans had discovered too late. Lyudmila Pavlichenko was not anomaly or propaganda. She was one of the most effective tactical weapons deployed on Eastern Front, and her 309 confirmed kills made her the deadliest sniper in military history.